Good morning.
Could you please state your name, affiliation, and address for the record?
Sure. My name is Robert Lee Harvey Jr. Address is 480 North Pfeiffer Road, Star Tannery, Virginia. Affiliation, I'll just go ahead and introduce myself. I'm not opposed to the Remington project either. However, I'm a Virginia resident, Dominion Power customer, and I don't represent any group or lobby effort. However, I do respectfully offer comment about Dominion's accounting planned use of renewable energy credits, RECs, as specifically related to the proposed Remington solar installation and rider SG1. Dominion has supplied the SEC with erroneous and misleading information that... Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Actually, I have it. It's on the paper. But I'll slow down. Sorry. Dominion has supplied the SEC with erroneous and misleading information that relates to the purpose, use, and application of the RECs and renewable energy credits that will be created by and used for this project. More to the point, Dominion proposes an unrealistic pro forma income from the sale of the SRECs from this plant. Because the income from the sale of the SRECs would offset some of the costs of the Remington project when applied to rider SG1, Dominion's error is going to change how much consumers are charged. In my testimony, I hope to point out that Dominion is representing itself and this project as a renewable or green project. That Dominion has overestimated and supplied the SEC with inflated pro forma values for the RECs, and that Dominion misleads the SEC and consumers about how Dominion meets Virginia's voluntary RPS program by using legacy capacity RECs, some of which are 90 years old. Just to mention that Washington is in a state of flux, but there are some things that are a little more clearly defined. As defined by the EPA, quote, a REC represents the property rights to the environmental, social, and other non-power qualities of renewable electric generation. A REC and its associated attributes and benefits can be sold separately from the underlying physical electricity associated with the renewable-based generation source, end quote. That's from the EPA. The EPA then clearly defines when power is considered renewable, in quotes, and green, in quotes. I quote the EPA again. As renewable energy generators produce electricity, they create one REC for every 1,000 kilowatt hours, one megawatt hour of electricity placed on the grid. This is the key point, however. If the physical electricity and the associated RECs are sold to separate buyers, the electricity is no longer considered renewable, in quotes, or green, in quotes. The REC product is what conveys the attributes and the benefits of the renewable electricity, not the electricity itself, end quote, from the EPA. Per 3 Degrees, which is Dominion's REC REC procurement service contractor, they also say, quote, RECs therefore provide organizations and individuals with a mechanism to keep legal title to the environmental benefits of renewable energy distinct from the flow of electrons, end quote. So here's the problem. Dominion's Remington Exhibits 2 and 3, along with its public information campaign to date related to this project, are peppered with words like renewable, carbon intensity, green, yet Dominion states from the get-go they intend to sell the RECs created for this project. Because Dominion intends to sell the RECs, the electricity will be stripped of the renewable attributes, and it simply becomes generic or null electricity, as it's known in the trade, without any renewable or green credit given to it. While this may seem like a wordplay, it is not a wordplay. And the EPA has addressed this in previous policy and again in the Clean Power Plan, although that is up in the air as we know. Per the Center of Resource Solutions, quote, it is represented as renewable while the REC is, if it is represented as renewable while the REC is used or sold elsewhere, that is a misrepresentation. It often simply referred to as double counting. The quote goes on. The REC that Dominion plans to sell may then be used by an out-of-compliance energy producer somewhere else to avoid penalties for not meeting a mandatory renewable portfolio standard in another state. In other words, somebody somewhere is then polluting our environment and using the Dominion REC to shield them from while Dominion claims to be producing green energy. That doesn't make any sense. Whether in Pennsylvania or Virginia, we all share the same atmosphere. The RPS was created to encourage utilities to produce clean energy, and most would agree that the RPS was not intended for a utility to profit from the PR and then turn around and sell the RECs, while allowing a dirtier producer to avoid their action and consequences. Even though Dominion clearly plans to sell the RECs, the company's PR campaign has already leveraged this project by releasing press statements, including quotes from our governor and others heaping praise on Dominion's renewable project. And then in my submission, I put the press statement. But again, If the RECs are sold, then Dominion is simply building a power plant to make null electricity. But the press statements give a different impression. Mr. Farrell even uses solar energy and renewable in the same sentence, all the while knowing that Dominion would be selling the environmental attributes. It is not renewable if you sell their attributes, because they are selling the bragging rights. You can't have it both ways. This story is, the cat's already out of the bag. This story's been picked up by multiple news agencies, including the AP. Dominion's PR website says similar things. Quote, Remington Solar Power joins a growing list of renewable projects, and goes on and on. But I'm going to reiterate again what the EPA says. If the physical electricity and the associated RECs are sold to separate buyers, the electricity is no longer considered renewable or green. I also believe that there are erroneous assumptions that Dominion has made in the pro forma statement, as I've already mentioned. I believe that Dominion grossly exaggerates the amount of money the SRECs will produce. Well, I'm sure Dominion has notified the SEC already, updating their figures. I'd at least like to bring it forth. Dominion states that this solar generating station has a capacity factor of 22% and will produce 20,140 megawatt hours of solar electricity. Dominion does not definitively state how many RECs it will be produced, but by definition, 1 megawatt hour equals 1 REC. So we can speculate that Dominion intends to sell 20,140 RECs. Based on the yearly income of sales from the RECs totaling $1,359,000, which is figure 3 that I handed out, dividing that by the number of RECs comes up with $67 per REC. Also in the handout, I'm sorry, you don't have one, do you?
But I will get one.
Okay. Also in the handout, I listed both in my figure 2 and figure 3, their exhibits where they list both a monthly income and a yearly income for those RECs. And their monthly income, they listed $163,000. Double checking that, they then listed it as $1,359,000. The current price of Pennsylvania SRECs, which is where Dominion apparently wants to sell the SRECs, is $18. So Dominion has overestimated the yearly income by almost $1 million by my calculations. And maybe the SEC should recalculate as well. This error significantly changes the projected cost recovery factor and will be balanced on the back of the consumer. In private business, this would not be tolerated, but in this case, Dominion will simply appear before the SEC in subsequent years and claim market conditions have changed and ask for a true-up, which in Dominion's statement, Mr. Probst stated exactly the same, which I quote, we will either credit to or recover from jurisdictional customers the difference between revenues recovered through Rider US 1. Regardless, Dominion gets paid their expenses plus 10%. Dominion's Mr. Gaskell stated in his testimony that Dominion intends to sell the SRECs in the SREC market and, quote, assume that it would be able to sell RECs from the project to the SREC market only through the year 2020 and then revert to the Tier 1 REC market, end quote. Later, Mr. Gaskell states, quote, if, however, the Pennsylvania SREC market continues to offer premium pricing for longer than initial years, the company will be able to take advantage of those higher prices. Unfortunately, before the ink dried from his statement, the Pennsylvania SREC market prices had plummeted with little hope of selling SRECs at a higher price through 2020, much less for longer than the initial years that he stated. Also, in my testimony, I'll just show you. What I included was a screenshot from a webinar from 2014 from SREC Trade, and I just have to tell you what it says, and you can look later. But basically, their anticipation 2014 at existing capacity oversupplied by so many RECs. 2015 oversupplied. 2016 oversupplied. So this evidence was clearly out there. Now, how do I know this? Well, I have 10 solar panels in my house, and I sell my SRECs, so I keep track of this. I'm really surprised that Dominion wouldn't also. If you simply go onto SREC Trade right now and simply go to the Pennsylvania site, the first thing that comes up is Pennsylvania's SREC market is oversupplied. It's 2 clicks away. It's unsettling that Dominion assumed and projected a market price near what is included in their testimony to the SEC. If so, what other projections and costs are wrong or misleading? Dominion's Mr. Rogers states that they own and operate 252 megawatts of operating renewable solar energy capacity. But then how can a company that operates such a large fleet of solar generation make such a large error estimation projection? Again, the prices are around $18. But even in the worst case, they cushioned their statement by saying that they would drop back to the Tier 1 market. But in the worst case, is Dominion stating the PJM GATS Tier 1 market figure correctly? Well, on July 17th, a week ago or so, I created an account on PJM GATS and I logged on. I found no buy request for Tier 1 RECs and only one request for Pennsylvania SRECs, and again, that was for $18. This also included my testimony, screenshots of this. So I believe that the prices are overstated. I also believe that if Dominion is going to sell the SRECs, I believe this whole corporate dumping would devalue the SREC market, all the while decreasing the value of the commodity that Dominion wishes to sell. And nothing could be worse for the future deployment of solar, especially for non-utility generators that cannot compete against an organization that has unlimited funds. Individual solar producers will have their Tier 1 market income obliterated. The playing field is already heavily skewed with Dominion's economies of scale, insider knowledge of prime interconnection points, interconnection rulemaking hurdles, and guaranteed return on equity, 10%. So, in conclusion, I respectfully suggest that the SEC should ask Dominion how many RECs this project will produce yearly. The SEC should also ask Dominion to have an independent third party with REC market experience estimate the REC income based on realistic SREC pricing as of today and what's anticipated in the future. I believe that the SEC will then find that the value of the Remington SRECs is not nearly what Dominion has stated in previous testimony. Better yet, I suggest that the Remington RECs should be retired in the Virginia RPS program. This will avoid double counting and allow Dominion to continue to claim Remington as a renewable generator, which they have already leveraged. Purchasers of Dominion's solar purchase program, already mentioned by other testimony today, would then know that the whole renewable energy and its full attributes is being purchased and not simply use the shuffle and a shell game of capacity credits from hydropower nearly a century ago. I detailed that in Appendix A of my submission. The purpose of the RPS is to decrease Dominion's reliance on fossil fuels and to increase the use of renewable energy sources today, not from 1910. Dominion uses banked credits to meet the RPS. Some of those credits predate Charles Lindbergh's transatlantic flight. This was his airplane then, and these are the RECs we're using. And they were created only 2 years after the first Model T was produced. This was the car that the RECs, this was the car of the age that the RECs were generated in. Although the shell game is legal, it's not right or responsible, and it does nothing towards Dominion's renewable energy portfolio. The SEC should scrutinize Dominion at every level and every number. My dealings so far with Dominion have yielded significant inaccuracy when trying to interconnect my small renewable energy project, and it's still being delayed. I'd be happy to elaborate further, but apparently this is the place, but probably not the time. Lastly, the SEC should require Dominion to produce readable exhibits. It took me a lot of time to wade through this. Why is the Black and Beach study in this report listed twice? Why are there so many data elements blacked out? Why are 70 pages of simulation file data included? It's useless filler without any context. The overwhelming number of pages in these exhibits makes them deliberately unreadable to the SEC and to the public. Dominion lacks transparency, and by submitting 700 pages of subterfuge, it's impossible to see the facts, and this does not serve the public interest. So, in conclusion, I support the Remington project. I support Dominion's goals to try to move forward with green energy, but I cushion that statement. I thank you for the time that you're taking to listen to my comments, and should you require any further clarification about Remington facts, SRECs information that I have, or the burdens that Dominion places on small renewable folks like me, please feel free to contact me.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Harvey, before you step down, it appears, while I don't have your submission, it appears from your testimony and comments that there's more in your submission than what you have presented orally here this morning.
Yes, ma'am. Mostly facts and figures.
Facts and figures.
Yeah, and tables.
So I would like to mark Mr. Harvey's submission as Exhibit 1 and admit it into the record. Does anyone have an objection or any questions of Mr. Harvey on the submission? All right. So, Mr. Harvey, your submission, in addition to your testimony that you have offered here live today, will be admitted into the record. Thank you very much for coming to the commission this morning.
Thank you for your time.